So welcome everyone. My name's Ashley. I'm joined with Twilani. We're both on Tiller's support and customer success team. And this is the fourth session in our Getting Started with Tiller series. So today we're going to be talking all about setting up a budget for the year ahead. Throughout the session, feel free to ask questions. You should see a Q&A feature in Zoom. So feel free to send those questions through. Tulane is going to be helping with answering some of those live by text, but we'll also follow up after the webinar with answers to all of the questions that are asked. So definitely don't worry if we don't get to your question today. We will be following up with a community post with answers to all of the questions that were asked. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is session 4 in a series of 6. We have links to recordings for all of our previous sessions available in the community. And I'll follow up after this with a link to this recording and again, all of the questions that we have. So feel free, if you haven't taken a look at the previous sessions, definitely take a look. There's some great information in there about getting your Tiller account set up and running. Okay, so let's dive in. So for today, we're focusing on budgeting in your foundation sheet. We're going to talk a little bit about using the debt payoff planner and also creating a savings goal using our savings goal template. And again, Q&A if we have time at the end, and we'll send all of that over today or tomorrow with this recording and a full list of any of the questions that were asked. Okay, so zooming out for a second before we get into the foundation template, let's talk about what Tiller is all about. So Tiller is your financial life in a spreadsheet, automatically updated each day. So Tiller is a financial tool that makes managing your money in a spreadsheet fast and easy by automating your daily transactions and balances into your spreadsheet of choice, so either Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel. We believe that spreadsheets are the best way to really get in tune with your money because they're flexible, they're collaborative, and they're very customizable. In terms of budgeting, a budget is just a way to help you stay on track with your monthly spending and by allowing you to set a target or a cap on your spending for specific categories. And so we'll talk a little bit about how to create your budgets and what that looks like. But using the budgeting feature in Tiller is super, super simple, and you can get up and running with it pretty quickly here. So I'm excited to dive in. So I'll get started here in my console. So the console is where you have basically Command Central for your account. We went over everything that you can find in here previously. So definitely look at some of those past sessions for that. But here you'll see my linked spreadsheets and also my accounts. Some of these are connected accounts and some of these are manual. So I've created some demo data that we can use here under these manual accounts, and that's what we'll be checking out today. So this is my demo foundation template using these manual accounts. And so I'm just going to click to open that in a new tab. And it's going to bring us to our spending trends sheet here. Before we get started, I'm going to power up my Tiller Money Feeds add-on. So if you don't have this, it is in the add-on store in your Google template, and you'll just search for Tiller Money Feeds. This is an important tool for some of the things that we're going to be doing, particularly adding in some additional templates. So I'll just go ahead and make sure I'm logged in here. Okay. And then we should be good to go here. So last week, we talked about setting up categories, and I'll head into my categories tab here. So we talked about how important it is to set up categories because it not only helps you to manage your spending trends, but it's also where you'll set up your monthly budgets. So you can see here under categories, we have some of the default categories that will be preloaded into your Tiller spreadsheet when you get started with us. I've also done some custom ones, and we'll talk a little bit about the hierarchy there. But really, everything in here is meant for you to adjust and customize specific to your needs. So to do a brief refresh on categorization, we have sort of 3 levels. So the broadest being type in column C. So the type here can be income, expense, or transfer. We don't have any additional types on top of that. So every transaction you have is going to fall into one of these 3 types. Next, we have group. So these are sort of the broader bucket that your individual categories will fall into. So for me, I've got some discretionary ones here. I've got financial, my income, living, and then I've also created groups for kids. So I wanted to break down kid-specific spending into different categories, as well as medical and dental. I wanted to have some specific categories in there as well. And then category is going to be your most granular. So this is where you'll set up the specific categories that you want to use. So for me, I have some of the defaults here that make sense for me, like restaurants. And then down here, I wanted to break out for my custom group, things like daycare, school supplies, health insurance, that kind of stuff. The big thing here is to keep in mind that like this is really for you to set up and use in the way that makes the most sense for you. I'll link this as well, but we have an awesome community discussion that people add to all the time that really just talks about how different people are setting up their different categories and how that works for their budgets. So I would highly recommend checking this out because it's a great place to get some inspiration for the different ways that you might be setting up your categories to view your spending. Okay, so once you have your categories set up in a way that makes sense for you, you can actually set your budgets right in this sheet. So if we scroll over to the right a little bit, you'll see that we've got a column for every month of the year. And this is going to represent our budgets per month at the category level. So I'll go through and I'll update a couple of these just to kind of show you how it works. So to get started, let's say I want to update my budget for restaurants. So we can say maybe I want to target to spend about $100 at restaurants each month. One thing you'll notice is that as soon as you fill something in the January column, it's automatically going to apply to the future months. So this makes it easy if you've got stable budget. So for things like maybe your paycheck or your housing, your mortgage or rent, you can easily set those to be the same for every month. But you can also update these on a month-to-month basis. So for me, for restaurants, this is my target, generally speaking. But I do know that in September, for example, I tend to have a higher budget because my birthday and my husband's birthday both fall in that month. So let's say for September specifically, I'm going to update that target to $250. And again, it's going to update these cells to the right. So if I don't want to have the remaining months of the year, I'll just move into October and update that again. Okay, we can update a couple more here. So let's take a look at what I've got going on for some other ones. So maybe for gifts, I'll set myself a low target for most months. Maybe we'll say I've got $50 for gifts here and there. But I know that in November and December, I tend to have higher spending because of the holiday season. So maybe I'll update that to $200 per month there. So again, you can pick and choose exactly how much you want to add for each one. And just bear in mind that when you add it in one of these cells, it's going to carry forward to the future months in that row. Okay. So we get asked a lot of questions about, how much should I budget for things, especially when it comes to these discretionary categories. How do I know how much is okay to set for a budget for these things? And there's a few ways to think about it. One of the things that you can do is actually take a look at your past spending to sort of see where you're at. So what I'll do here is head into my monthly budget. And so this is where sort of all of those categorizations and transactions come together to give you a view of what you're spending. So this is my January view, so for this month. But if I'm setting my goals for this month and forward, let's take a look at what I have going on from last month. So I don't have any budgets for 2025. This is a new sheet. So my income budget, my spending budget, and my planned cash flow, they're all going to show as zero. But it is going to show me my actual spending. So I can see here, I haven't categorized all of my transactions. So those ones aren't going to be falling in here. So I'm going to pop back into my transactions tab and just scroll through and make sure that I've categorized everything correctly. So I'm seeing a couple blanks here. These are both going to be shopping. So I can go ahead and update those. I'll scroll down to and make sure that I've got everything covered for December. That one's blank. That's going to be groceries. There we go. And I'll scroll down again. That's going to fall under restaurants. So we just want to make sure that we've categorized each of our transactions so that we have a full picture of everything we've got. Okay, so I can see that I have everything categorized for December and January, which means I'm going to have a pretty good view of my spending habits now. So I'll go back into my monthly budget. You'll see now that all of my transactions are categorized for December 2025. And now we can kind of take a look and see what things look like here. So when you're trying to figure out how much to budget, you can kind of look through these different categories and determine, was this a common expense? Is this about what I spend, or did I overspend in a certain area? So for example, if I come down here, I'm seeing that I spent more in December on gifts than I probably typically would, but that makes sense because it's the holidays. So I can take that into account. If I come down here, I'll see I spent quite a bit on travel. That's not a typical month. So I wouldn't going forward set my travel budget, for example, for $900. But if I know I have a trip, that might be something that I want to incorporate. If I come down here and take a look, I'm seeing, this daycare charge. That's my standard monthly rate. So this is something that I would use kind of as is in my budget. Living, things like housing, is that a constant or a stable charge? Groceries, is that about what you spend? So really just kind of taking a look at past months and figuring out what makes sense for you. One thing that you should always keep in mind here is that it's okay for budgets to change. It's really normal for things to, come up that you're not expecting. Maybe you get, an unexpected bonus at work, or your car breaks down and you've got a transportation expense that you weren't thinking of. It's okay to make adjustments as you go along here. So none of this is set in stone, and you can definitely adjust as you go. So now let's take a look here and check out the current month and kind of orient ourselves into the budget view here for the month. So what we can see here is a high-level view of everything that's going on in January. So sort of starting over here on the right, we see that I've budgeted $5,000 for income, but I've actually had a little bit over that. So my actual income has been $5,033. So if I come down here into my categories, this is going to show me exactly where that's coming from. So I can see my paycheck was $5,000. And then I had a $33 interest payment that I wasn't expecting. So that's going to give me a little bit of surplus on my actual income. Next, we can see we've got our spending budget and then our spending actual. So the spending budget is what I've set under my expenses here. So you can see that everything I've budgeted as an expense is going to total $4,110. And then I've actually spent $2,457. So you can see here the difference between the budgeted spending and the actual spending. And it's going to let you know here how much of that expense budget is still available. So I have 9 days remaining in the month, and I still have 40% of my expense budget available. So I'm expecting to spend a little bit more before the end of the month to hit that spending budget. Next, if I look over here, we see our planned cash flow. And so this is how much you plan to have left over after your budgeted income and budgeted spending. So sort of if you earn every dollar that you were expecting to earn and spend every dollar you were expecting to spend, this is what you can expect to have left over. So this is something that we'll use going forward when we talk about savings and debt planning. So now in this page, I'll scroll down, and so you can get a view of sort of actual spending here. So if I come down here under my expenses, you'll see some of these have a positive amount, and then some of these have a negative amount and are red. So if they're in the red, that means I've spent more than I was planning on. So for example, in my shopping category here, I've spent about $81 more than I had budgeted for this month. But if I come up here, say to home improvement, I still have $58 budgeted to spend there. So again, you can kind of get a view and an understanding of what you're spending and where your money's going. For this one here, so I have daycare. I can see that I've budgeted my $360, but I've spent that exact amount, so I have $0 left over. So I'm exactly on budget for that. Same thing is going to go for housing. My budget and my actual is going to equal $0, so we're perfectly budgeted on that one. And again, this is just a really great way to kind of see on a category by category basis where you're spending your money, how you're doing in relation to the budget for those things, and where you might want to make adjustments going forward. Okay. You can also take a look at this on a yearly basis. So I'll click into my yearly budget sheet here. Now, For the year, obviously, we're still in January, so I'm not going to have much information in the way of actual cash flow for the future months here, but it is going to show me what I've budgeted for my total income for the full year. And my total expenses for the full year. So it's going to show me, I'm expecting an actual cash flow of 2575 for all of this for the full year. And then it'll show me my actual cash flow. My budgeted cash flow is 10,230, and my actual cash flow so far is just based on January and is that 2575, which again is my leftover from my unspent budget for this month. So it's going to show you the same kind of per category spending and budget breakdown as the monthly budget sheet, but it's going to show you all of the months of the year. So as you move forward, a lot more information is going to populate here so that you can see what's going on. Okay, so that's kind of a high-level overview of what the budgets look like, how to set them using categories. But something that we hear from a lot of folks is, once I get my budget set up, how can I actually start working toward the goals that I have, be that around debt payoff or savings? And so Tiller has some great tools built in that can help you with this. So I'm going to go ahead and head into my Tiller Money Feeds add-on here. And so we're going to take a look at the debt payoff planner and the savings goals template. So in here, if you come to your sidebar and go to templates and then click browse, it's going to pop up with some different options for new templates that you can add into your workbook based on your needs. I've already installed these, but we're specifically looking at savings goals here, and then the debt payoff planner. And you can see that these are both built by the Tiller team because they've got the Tiller tag on them. We also have some great community built solutions that'll be tagged with community. And that just means that somebody who's not a Tiller developer created these and we've made them available for your use. So to install these, you just need to click on it and then click install. It'll be an install button. They take a few minutes to populate, so I've already installed them here. So we'll get started looking at those. Okay. So here's the debt payoff planner. And so there's a couple things we need to do here to start setting this up. First things first, we're going to choose our start month. So I started, let's say, using Tiller last month. So my start month is going to be December of 2025. The next thing I'm going to do is come down here and add my accounts. So as I mentioned before, I've got sort of these two accounts. I've got that line of credit and I've got a credit card. So I'm going to add these in here and it's going to show me my current balance for each. So I'm owing $5,000 on the line of credit and then $2,500 on the credit card. Okay. The next thing we're going to want to add is our interest rate and the minimum monthly payment. This is not information that Tiller can pull in automatically. So these are things that you're going to get from your bank statement, but they're pretty easy to find. And I'm just going to set these. So let's say my interest rate for the line of credit, let's say is 21%. Let's say I have a $200 minimum payment. And then for this one, we'll say 18%. We'll say 125. Again, these are just example numbers, but you would have the actual values on your statements. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do here is click these off to make them active in our sheet. And then it's going to start giving us some information here. So it's going to show us not only our current balance, but also our starting balance. And so as I mentioned, I'm starting from December of 2025. So these were my balances last month. So you can see I've made some progress in paying these off already. And we have our nice little progress bar here. The final thing we need to do here in order to really be able to visualize all of our data is to set our monthly payoff goal. So it's going to tell us here that our minimum monthly payments are totaling $325. So that's the absolute floor of what we need to pay each month. But to get started on paying this off, we're going to want to add a higher number here. One way that you can think about this and figure out how much you want to pay each month is using the monthly budget view. So if I come in here, it's going to show me that my anticipated cash flow is $890. So this is how much I have left over after I've covered my expenses and I've received my expected income. And so this is a really good number to use as a baseline for how much you have available to you to put toward debt. I also have some savings goals, so I might not want to put this total number toward my debt, but let's say I'm going to take $700 of this and use that as my monthly debt payoff. So once I've chosen my monthly payoff goal number, I'll simply add that here. And now it's going to give me this really great view of my payoff plan. So we have a couple different payoff methods. This one is avalanche. So the avalanche method prioritizes the highest interest rate debt first. So you can see here for my line of credit, that's got the highest interest rate. And so it's going to take into account my minimum monthly payment for each of my debts, but it's going to prioritize the higher interest rate. So most of my payment is going to go toward that line of credit. And it's telling me that I will have that fully paid off by November of this year if I stick with this payment plan. We also have the snowball method, and this is going to prioritize the lowest starting balance. So you can see here, this would flip. It would instead prioritize the credit card, which would be paid off by July if I were to follow these goals. And again, taking into account the recommended minimum monthly payment that you're getting from your bank. So overall, you can see this is giving you a really great visualization of how you'll pay things off and what that looks like as you move through time. And so to kind of show you how this changes, I'm going to go back into my console and I'm going to manually update my balances for these two just to represent a payment. So again, if I'm doing the snowball method, I'm going to put $200 toward my line of credit and $500 toward my credit card. So we'll come in here down to my manual accounts. And I'll edit my balance here. So let's do update balance. I wanted to pay off 500, so I'm going to update my balance to 2,000. And then for the line of credit, I wanted to pay 200, so then we'll go 4,800 and update my balance. And then if I come back into my spreadsheet here, I can check for those new updates from my console and then fill that information. And it's going to automatically update what my balances are looking like. So it's just going to take a second to think here. I'll fill those updates. And now we can see it's adjusted, right? So I've made my payment. I've progressed in terms of my payoff progress, and my bars here have come down in terms of how much I have remaining on each. So I made my payment and now it's saying I'm going to be paying off that demo credit card in June of this year because we've made a payment. So it automatically is going to reflect to the changes in your balances. If you have connected accounts, this will automatically update whenever you fill your sheet. And for manual accounts, it would be the process that I just showed. Okay, so that's kind of an easy way to think about and set up your debt payoff. But we also have a great tool for creating savings goals. So that'll be the next thing that I show here. So I'll pop into this dashboard. It looks very blank right now, but don't worry, it's super easy to get your data in here. So the first thing we're going to do is scroll over to the right side and we're going to look in column L and we're going to choose our funding accounts. And so this is savings goals. So it's going to give me my asset type accounts. So I have my registered education savings plan for my son. I'm going to choose that one as one. And then I just have my basic savings account, and I'll add a couple of goals here. So once I choose my funding accounts, we'll name our different goals. So for this education plan, I'm just going to say that's education. And my son's only 2, so this is a super long-term target, but I'm going to go ahead and make that, say, $60,000. For my shorter-term savings, I'm going to use my savings account here. And let's talk about a couple of things that I might be saving for. So maybe I have a trip coming up. I want to save some money to go to Cancun. I'll set that name here. I'd like to replace my dishwasher by the end of the year, so I can put that as a savings goal. And then a nice to have, I would love to get a new set of skis. So I'll add that as a goal name. And then I'll set my targets for that. So for Cancun, I'd like to have $1,200 set aside. My dishwasher, I'm expecting about $800. And then we'll say $500 for the new set of skis. Once I've added in all of these savings goals, I've selected my account, I've named them. I'm going to set them active in my dashboard here by ticking off that box. And now you can really see your data and your goals kind of coming to life here. So I have my different accounts here and the associated goals. And you can see here, they're going to be filled in terms of the order that they're entered here, but you can also re-rank them. So I'm just going to go here and show how this is looking right now for some of these. So I put in the travel goal as first. And so you can see that this is fully funded based on that ordering, but maybe that's the least important thing. And I really want to pay for my dishwasher first, then my travel, and then my skis third. So when we're thinking about the savings goal here, it's using the waterfall method. So that just means that it's not going to start filling another goal until you've met the original one. So that's why the prioritization is important here, based on which goals are the most important to you and what ones you want to be tracking. So you can see here, if I prioritize my dishwasher, that's fully funded because I have $1,400 in my savings account. But my trip is only 50% funded because I still need to save $600 to meet that goal. So once I save that additional $600, it'll move into saving toward my new skis. And again, I'll come into my console and I'll update the balance on my savings account. So let's say I put $300 in here. So let's update that to $1,700. I can update my balance. And again, I'm just going to click to check for updates. I'll fill those updates. And then you'll see once those fills happen, it's going to adjust my my charts here. So now I'm 75% of the way funded for that trip. And yeah, and we can go from there. So this is a super simple way to set up savings. And again, you can reprioritize these as needed. You can change your savings goals as needed, but it's a great way to visualize your progress, especially for these short-term goals. You can see those savings get filled up pretty quickly. And that's super motivating as you are moving towards your goals. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the demo portion. We're almost at time here. So I do just want to let you all know that if you need support, you can reach us at support@tiller.com. You can also click the support button at the bottom right of your console, and that just looks like this. So you can click here. This is going to link you to our help center where you can search for articles, but you can also send us a message and this will come right to our support team. So in the few minutes that we've got here, I'm going to open up the Q&A. And again, I'm going to follow up with answers to all of the questions here. So don't worry if we don't get to your question now. We've only got 2 minutes left. But yes, okay. So one of the questions here, did you cover how to set up New Year in categories in a previous webinar? We do have a resource for that. So if you're using your 2025 sheet and want to add 2026, we will send a resource on how to do that. A couple more questions here. If I have categories already in another spreadsheet, will they transfer to future spreadsheets? They're not in the foundation template. So no, whenever you start a new foundation template with Tiller, it's just going to have the default categories. You'll need to manually update those as needed. So you would need to update those. But if they already exist in another spreadsheet, you can just copy and paste them into your current sheet there. Where can I add the savings goals tab to my foundation sheet? That's a great question. So I'll run through that again. What I'll do here is I will remove this sheet and I'll just show you what that looks like. So in your Tiller Money Feeds add-on on the right here, if you scroll down to templates and then click browse, it's going to open up with all of the available template add-ons that you can add in. So the savings goals one is down here with a little star and it says Tiller. So just click on that one, click install. It'll take a minute or two to think and pull in your data, but then it's going to be available for you and you can start adding in your information. So here you can already see it starting to populate with that information there. Okay. Cool. So I see a couple more questions here. Some of them are specific to accounts, but so I won't be able to answer them live. But do reach out if you have a specific account question or want to run over your setup with our team. Just feel free to reach out to the support team. As I mentioned, you can email us or click on the help button in the console. But I'm going to be following up with lots of step-by-step information on how to set up these different templates and get started with budgeting and savings. So thank you all for attending. There's some great questions here that I'm going to follow up with ASAP. And hopefully I'll see you all in the next one next week when we talk about using the Tiller community. All right, take care, everybody.